Chasing Giants with Don Higgins and Terry Peer. Brought to you by Osseo Camo, nature's most lethal camouflage. Follow along as Don and Terry discuss the techniques, strategies, and dedication needed to harvest one of God's most amazing creations, world-class whitetails.
Well, welcome everyone to the Chasing Giants podcast, episode 219. Don, I believe it's May 5th when this thing is going to air. And you have had a busy day here on Friday with the Prodigy West Delks on the new 90. We got some announcements to make in this episode, and then we got a long list of questions to try to catch up on. So let's kick it off and get right to it. What'd you and Wes get done on the new 90 today?
Wes and I finished up the tree stand work. I'd already had a couple stands up on that place, and I had 3 more to get up, and now I'm set. Everything basically is done on that property. Just hoping a big buck shows up, but you know, it sure is nice having a young guy with a strong back to help you put your stands up. We had 3 ladder stands. I put them on the property here a week or so ago and had them at the base of each tree where they went, but I couldn't get them up by myself, and Wes volunteered to come help, so I took him up on it, made the most of it.
Yeah, we talk about that we've gotten more and more accustomed to hunting ladder stands over the years, and we like big and heavy ones.
Yep.
And that makes it even a little bit tougher to get them up in the tree by ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, but once they're there, they're pretty secure.
Yeah.
Need to throw out, Wes brought me a couple of gifts, too. One of his consulting clients, Jamie Pearson, made some shirts, and you see my shirt here.
Oh, that's cool.
So he brought me a couple of those, and I appreciate Jamie sending those my way.
God's reality is definitely always bigger.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, hanging tree stands, we like to have them done earlier in the year than what we are right now, but it's really, really handy to have a second person. I saw one of the pictures with Wes with a pole saw, and when you go up and setting the tree stand, having somebody on the ground cutting limbs for you, boy, you can make quick work of it and get out of there quick, can't you?
Yeah, I just sit up there in the stand, and I just pointed to trees, and Wes cut them. Well, that sure beats climbing down, cutting some trees, climbing back up, seeing a couple more you should have cut, climb down, cut them, climb back up. Oh, crap, I missed one. Go back and cut it. And the older you get, the less times you got to climb that stand, the better off you are.
Well, I'm curious, in there walking around in those woods and climbing up in those trees, you get any ticks on you today?
I haven't found any. No.
Good grief. They are horrible down here. I've never seen a year where we've had as many ticks as what we've had.
I have not noticed that here.
Huh. Well, I ended up going down to Western Kentucky yesterday, and I know I said I was done consulting for the year, but one of our good listeners of the podcast purchased a property, and a big portion of the property is already in CRP that is coming out this year, and he needed to make a decision right now on how much to put it back in program versus how much to put in food plot. So I drove down there yesterday, and we walked the property. I didn't go in the timber. I'm going to have to go back, and we worked out a deal where I'll go back after the winter and work on our bedding a little bit more, but we got a plan for our food plots and what he's going to re-enroll back into CRP. So we picked ticks off of us for I don't know how long, and we even sprayed down. I've never seen anything like it down here.
I've not noticed that around here whatsoever, but the one thing that has happened in the past couple of weeks, it's really unbelievable, is I'm still getting calls every single day or emails, one of the two, sometimes both, for people looking for us to consult on their properties. In fact, there was one day, a couple of days ago, I had 3 people in one day, want to get on the list for next winter. And I'm trying to slow down, folks. And Terry and Wes are going to have to pick up the slack along with Bobby and Mark. And got the new guy, Caleb, and looking at another one for down south, too. So the phone just keeps ringing. And this time of the year, I don't think I've ever seen that many calls the first week of May like I've got this week.
Yeah, but at least it's good they're getting on a list. We can at least start planning and organizing a little bit earlier. But if you get on the list, at least we have something to work from.
Yep.
A little bit later, actually, let's go ahead and play it right now before we get too far along. Last year, the Haiti mission auction, the Higgins Outdoors Dream Team, I did a donated consulting visit for that to help raise money for mission work in Haiti. And I agreed to do that again this year. So right after the Osseo spot here in just a little bit, the two of the coordinators of that auction recorded a short little video explaining about that. So stay tuned right after the Osseo spot, and I'll play that little video of Andre and Kevin talking about how if you want to bid on a bunch of furniture, there's equipment, there's all kinds of stuff. They've raised millions and millions of dollars to employ Haitians and trade schools. And even though the country is pretty much under turmoil right now with, I think, basically a civil war, there's still mission work going on. So stay tuned for that. Don't miss the opportunity to put in a bid for a consulting visit to help mission work. So let's go ahead and make a couple quick real world announcements, because when we come back, I want to talk about, we have already got a schedule for public appearances and seminars and live podcasts for the summer, and I want to make sure we tell everybody where we're going to be after Osseo. So let's go ahead and make our real world announcements right now and get those out of the way, Don.
Yeah, so Real World has sold out of our 100-day corn. We still got plenty of the 112-day corn. We have sold out of switchgrass. I'm sure there's some at dealers, so if you're needing switchgrass, start calling dealers. Soybeans, we're going to be running out. I've noticed the soybean sales have picked up. I talked to one dealer in Ohio, said that when you and I mentioned it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, his phone started ringing off the hook with people wanting soybeans. So we still got them, but I don't know how much longer that's going to last. And
Dwayne said he was looking at the last batch to be bagged, and that's all we got. So, I mean, if he's going on his last run of packaging, we're there. As a couple people accused us of creative marketing, that we only did that just to drive sales. We're being honest with you folks. We're going to run out, and there's going to be people upset when we don't have it.
And I think it's the first time. So, we try to project using last year's sales numbers. We add some to it for growth. We just didn't add enough to it for growth. And we are going to sell out this year. Not a marketing ploy whatsoever. It's just the way it ended up.
Yep.
The pilot program with the grain sorghum, I noticed sales on that have been pretty brisk. It's limited, so if you're wanting some of that, you better order it pretty quick too. I forget how many acres worth Dwayne had, but a good portion of that's moved in the last couple of weeks.
And that's a variety of two different. We tested all kinds last year on all of our farms, and we picked two of the ones that we felt best to go into the pilot program on this. So that's going to be a blend of two different types.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it for Real World.
All right. Well, with that, let's save time for our speaking engagements and questions, and hear a word from Osseo and a little bit of information about this benefit auction for Haiti. And a consulting visit that has been donated by Higgins Outdoors. So stay tuned.
Osseo Gear has perfected one of the most innovative camo patterns on the market. The unique camo pattern designed to mimic the feather patterns of one of North America's greatest predators, the great horned owl. Combined with intuitive features, superior comfort, and ultra high quality fabrics, give bow hunters the ultimate advantage. Osseo has outfitted over 10,000 bow hunters across the country with over 1,000 5-star reviews. Visit asiogear.com to check it out for yourself. Use code CHASINGGIANTS for 15% off.
All right, so I'm Andre with the Kentucky Haiti Benefit Board.
Kevin Miller with the Kentucky Haiti Benefit Board as well.
Yeah, and we'd really like to thank Don and Terry for their support of the Kentucky Haiti Benefit Auction. Terry contributed a really nice package last year for us. Very happy with what he did there for the auction and what he's doing again. So we're just here to present kind of about the auction and what's going to be happening with his contribution this year.
Yeah, we definitely I want to extend my gratitude as well, and it definitely makes a tremendous impact in the lives of the Haitians. We broke record with our sale last year, and it's only because of donors like Chasing Giants, and we definitely appreciate them. So
absolutely, and we actually support through the Haiti Benefit Board. We support 17 different missions, and those missions are mostly still active, even with all the gang activities going on in Haiti. Most of the missions are in the country, and a lot of the gang activity is in the city. But a lot of those missionaries don't really have anywhere to go because they're native, and we are still supporting those missions. And the missions, a lot of them are vocational schools, kind of to teach the Haitians how to support themselves. Instead of just handing them a bunch of money, there's schools with 500 to 600 students in them. They're being taught in a biblical way how to support themselves, and that's kind of the goal with our mission there. So,
yeah. So the Haiti benefit auction would have started back in the 80s, and involves 7 different states, and so we are part of the Kentucky Haiti auction, and 17 different missions, and currently operating in Haiti.
So the upcoming auction is going to be held in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. It's going to be Friday, May 17th, and Saturday, May 18th. The auction on Friday will start at 5 o'clock p.m. And then on Saturday, we'll have the main auction. So the address for that is 2850 Pembroke Road, Hopkinsville, Kentucky 42240. It's at the Christian County Extension and Event Center. And again, that'll be May 17th and May 18th.
Appreciate that information, Andre. And yeah, there's a lot of wide array of items there available each year. And it's everything from garden supplies, new tools, 360 hunting blinds. There's going to be 2 of those there this year. Amish made furniture, a lot of Amish made furniture there, and a lot of small items, just a wide array. And so we appreciate each of our donors there.
Absolutely. And a lot of these items, we try to stress quality, and these items aren't just items that are just given to us. We actually purchase some items, try to have some really good items there that are new, high quality, so people can come to the auction and have a lot of choices and really good things to buy from. So you want to tell them about how to do the bid for the Chasing Giants?
Yeah, again, so appreciate Chasing Giants very much in doing this again this year. So the way to bid on this consulting visit will be to call or text your highest and best bid to my cell phone, and I will give that cell phone here in a little bit, by Saturday the 18th of May at 12 o'clock noon Central Time. So that bid will have to be in by noon, 12 o'clock Central Time on Saturday. And so this consulting visit will be, Terry will be coming out to your property. He will do a site evaluation, walking the property, and whatever he needs to come up with a plan for that property, and then he will draw up that plan, send it to you by mail. And the distance preferably, this can vary, but the distance preferably from the Dry Ridge, Kentucky area where Terry lives will be approximately 4 hours. It's about where he wants to be, but we can
I'll go anywhere.
that'll definitely be on.
He'll go anywhere with a pack of Little Debbie's.
So
no mileage restriction.
So just Terry will be in contact with y'all as far as when this could be, and you just be in contact with Terry if you are the winning bidder. So yes, my cell phone number is 270 area code 893 270-893-8340. Again, that number is 270-893-8340. And again, this will be a package deal. Terry will be coming out, writing out the plan, and also he has offered to do a $500 gift certificate towards any of the Chasing Giants sponsors.
Yeah.
Chasing Giants sponsors. So there will be a $500 gift
Little
certificate
Debbie is included
towards that. So
yeah. So again, we really appreciate Terry for making this happen. It really goes to good work, and we just can't thank him enough for that. So basically, again, the package is consulting visit and $500 towards a sponsor of your choice. So yeah, that's going to make a big difference in the sale for us. If you have any questions on other items there in the sale, feel free to reach out to Kevin. We do have a couple 360 blinds and things that you can buy there. So
yeah, so again, just a few more details on that. This will be sold on the silent auction board at the auction, which will close on Saturday afternoon. So the highest podcast bid may be outbid by a buyer present on sale day if they decide to bid higher. So by texting the bid, you agree to pay that full amount by May 31st, 2024, by check, credit card, or wire transfer. If payment is not received by May 31st or other arrangements made, the backup bidder will then be contacted to purchase the package. So along with that, if we have seen that you have been the highest bidder, we will contact you and make arrangements for that. So again, cell phone number is 270-893-8340. And so again, this is a consulting visit by Terry. Come to your property, walk the property, and draw up a professional plan to improve the hunting on your property. And we just extend sincere gratitude once again to everyone involved, and we are humbled to be a small part of this work, and just to God be the glory. So
absolutely. And one more time, the address is going to be at the Christian County Extension Event Center in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, 2850 Pembroke Road, Hopkinsville, Kentucky 42240. And thank you all for your support.
Okay, Don. We usually don't have this many things already lined up. We try to take the summers off, and occasionally we work on dealer open houses, but you have already got a jam-packed schedule, and we have one of our sponsors. We'll save till just the end of when you start talking about your speaking engagements, that's planning a really special event in Ohio. And I want to go ahead and tease that up. We don't have all the details yet, but we finally set a date. So why don't you go through your speaking engagements, and then I'll talk a little bit about Brenton Firearms' event planned for Ohio.
Yeah, so these are going to primarily be in July. I'm not starting until July, but and I don't have the dates in front of me, folks. Just stay tuned in future podcasts, and we'll have it on the screen and share the dates and details. But I'm going to be in Wisconsin. We got a dealer up there, Lloyd Marks and his son Royce. They own Milford Hills Hunt Club. Just a real nice facility. First class facility. It's going to be a supper and a seminar, and I'm thinking they're talking prime rib supper. So it's not going to be hot dogs, folks. It's going to be, a high dollar feast. I don't know that the charge is going to be high dollar, but you're going to be fed like a king at this one. Yeah, I got one in Michigan. The Michigan event is not going to be till August. That one's going to be at Real World dealer Irvin Schmucker in the Coldwater, Michigan area. I don't know exactly the location yet, but it's in the Coldwater area. He's looking at a major event with 3 speakers, I believe, 3 different speakers, and a facility that'll hold about 600 or so people. Going to be food at that one as well. And then I'm going on a journey out east. Our distributor out there, Eastern Outdoors, has lined up either 5 or 6 dealer events on back-to-back days. Most of those are in New York and Pennsylvania. Those will be in mid-July. And again, we're going to have a list here on a future podcast with the dates and phone numbers you can call and such, and locations for these. And then the one Terry alluded to is it's in July as well. It's in Ohio. What's it called?
July
Buggies,
20th.
buggies
Yeah,
and bullets or something.
yeah, they're calling it Buggies and Bullets because it's at this real high-end shooting range in central Ohio and kind of close to Amish country. But that date, we already know that date. That's July 20th. And it's going to be a full day. There's going to be opportunities for, this is almost going to be like not necessarily a seminar day, but a demo day. And there's going to be opportunities to shoot 1,000-yard targets, shorter shots. They're filling it all with just, but we've actually introduced Brenton to all of the other sponsors on Chasing Giants. So I believe Quiet Cat confirmed they're going to try to have one of the areas on this huge compound set up as demo area, an obstacle course kind of for bikes. I believe this range is also an archery dealer for Matthews, so they're going to be able to shoot Matthews bows on a 3D targets. Food, everything lined up, but it's getting hands-on with all of the stuff, and maybe even blinds and all the other things that are affiliated with our podcast. So it's quickly becoming a very big organized event that we will probably have Evan or Nick from Brenton Firearms on the show in the coming weeks to help us lay out that. But block that date out, July 20th in Central Ohio. Everybody's going to wonder what the name of the place is and where it's at. I don't know it off the top of my head, but I believe it's northeast of Columbus a little bit. So Central Ohio on July 20th. Mark your calendar and come spend the day with Don and I. We might even get into some, I don't know, we'll figure out some games or contests or something. Get Joe Miles up there with some 3D archery shooting with people. That'd be fun.
Aren't we doing a live podcast too? I think so.
Yeah, that's in the evening. So there's all kinds of hands-on stuff. We do the live podcast, and then I think right at dark, they're going to try to provide even the opportunities to demo like thermals and night vision stuff as it gets in the evening. So in lower lights, I think it's going to be a really cool event that Brenton's coordinating. So yeah, mark your calendar. I think it's going to be fun.
Definitely look forward to it.
All right. All right. Well, if it's all right with you, Don, I want to get straight into these questions because I believe we got 6 or 7 because we ran short of time the last couple weeks, and I want to get these questions answered for our listeners. Do you got anything else you want to bring up or talk about before we do?
I think we've covered it.
All right. So give me just a second, and we'll get this thing up on the screen for you to read the first one of the night.
Now, the first one comes from Ethan Jansen from Lena, Illinois. It says, Dear Don and Terry, have either of you had much success while hunting a pinch on the downwind side of bedding with a south wind? I have really great pinch on the north edge of the woods I hunt. I ran a camera over a rope scrape in the pinch for a couple of years with not many buck picks at all. Could this be because usually when the wind is blowing out of the south, the temperature is higher, which suppresses the buck movement? Thanks for your time. To be honest, Ethan, I've not noticed that whatsoever. I don't know if that the other edges of your property, you see a lot more activity. For example, when the wind's out of the north, you have a stand on the south side where you're seeing plenty of deer, and it's just these south winds stands on the north side that's not producing the deer sightings. It also, one of the reasons I wanted to pick that question, I want to throw out the idea that sometimes a pinch can be too tight for a mature buck. You don't want to pinch them down to, a 10-foot gap. If you can leave them a 20-foot or 20-yard wide travel corridor instead of pinching them really tight, I think it's a lot better. Sometimes a mature buck just does not want to go through a tight pinch. And I don't know if that's your problem or not. It very well could be.
I know my best rut spot in Illinois on the home farm is, right there next to the big cliff, requires a southeast wind, and that is absolutely my best rut stand across 3 states. No doubt about it. You helped me pick that spot in that tree, actually, when you saw it, but southeast wind on that place, dynamite.
Yeah, there's something going on. I mean, it's not because of the south winds. It's something about that location, and I would just be curious to know if when the wind is different, if you're seeing on that property, if you're seeing plenty of bucks, if the bucks are actually there, and if they are there, then my guess is there's something about the location. I don't know if they're pinched down too tight or there's something going on there. A south wind is not going to shut down the rut. Yeah, it'll shut down some daylight movement, but you're talking about getting pictures, and you should be getting at least night pictures with a south wind, and there's something missing to the whole equation to explain it.
Yeah. So if, depending on how this guy's property line is the right thing to do to put cameras on all sides of the bedding and see if it's something else that's there? Is that the way to go about it?
If the layout allows it, definitely. We don't know how it lays out. We can only guess, but he's on the downwind edge of a bedding cover. We don't know what the other edges look like.
Right.
But that would definitely be something to consider.
Yep. All right. Well, interesting question that we probably don't have a real good answer for, but good question nonetheless. I hope you get it figured out.
Next one comes from Chase Nicely from Blaine, Tennessee. He says, Don, I'd like to hear your input and thoughts on trail camera placement when trying to locate and chase a potential target buck. I've heard you mention a time or two that you don't like to hang cameras near your stands, but in a general area to know the deer is alive. Of the 20-some odd cameras I run on our farm in Missouri, some are outliers, some are on travel corridors, and some are even within eyesight of some stands, but each have a specific purpose for why they are where they are. My question is, when chasing a particular deer, what specifics are you wanting to know when going in to hang a camera? Confirmation of bedding areas, possible travel routes, correct stand placement if pre-hung in the spring, accessibility to a new potential kill site if the pattern shifts, where this deer likes to daylight, etc. Also, do you transition or move more cameras to the perimeter of the suspected core once you've located that deer to double down on the intel you gather? Thank you and look forward to hearing your thoughts. God bless. Well, Chase, the thing I want to know is the buck's range more than anything, and how much time he spends in a particular area within his range. If I've got, I think I can go to a property and pick out good locations for cameras and get pictures of the bucks that are there. So if I've got a particular target buck and I'm only getting his picture every couple of weeks, I assume that he's not spending a whole lot of time on that property. I want to find places where I get a buck's photo on a pretty consistent basis. It doesn't even have to be a daylight photo. I just want to know that he's here at on a specific property a lot. I mean, if he's there a lot, I don't need a camera to tell me bedding locations or anything like that, or travel routes. Travel routes maybe to some degree, because what I've noticed is that some individual bucks will travel across a particular property a little bit different than others. So you can narrow it down with cameras. Tree stand locations, yeah, maybe to some degree, but more than anything, I just want to know where that buck is spending the majority of his time. And I want to find the places where I get his picture on a very consistent and regular basis. And it might not be throughout the entire year. So, I may get his picture consistently in early October, but come November, he's not even there. Well, that's a piece of the puzzle I want to put together before he's old enough to be a target buck. So it's putting it all together in the years leading up to him becoming a target buck. And if you're shooting 5 and 6 year old deer, those deer should be catching your eye when they're 3 years old. If they're going to be giants, you're going to know it when they're 3 for the most part. I mean, it's very rare that you wouldn't. And that gives you 2 or 3 years to start putting things together. If you're waiting until he's 6 years old and you can put the pieces together when he's 3, 4, and 5, and then by the time he is 6, you know where he's going to be within his range at each point of the season, and where he's spending the most time in the early season, where he's spending the most time during the rut, and where he likes to go during the late season, which can shift a good little bit based on food sources. So it's just a matter of putting those kinds of things together. Where is he spending his most time? That's what I'm looking to put together with the camera intel.
I think this gets back to that topic of you using cameras more for annual data than hunting. What do they call that term? Most recent information, or what? I think there is a place for that to some degree, but for the most part, your trail camera strategy is setting up a history book and a game plan well in advance, not where I'm going to hunt tomorrow or next week during the rut.
Right. Yeah, I just most deer hunters are going to use their cameras a little bit different than I do. They're putting them out there. They're wanting information that they can use immediately to shoot a buck. And, you know, if you're hunting the same property year after year, you shouldn't have strange bucks just showing up, and that's your target buck. And if you hunt the same property year after year, you should learn the habits of not only the bucks on that property, but even individual bucks on that property. If you want to kill the giants consistently, you need to be doing that.
Well, and I think that there's a little bit of element of woodsmanship here too, because I've been on properties with you, and you don't need a trail camera data to kind of basically, not necessarily Babe Ruth call your shot, but you have a very good idea about how bucks are going to use different funnels, topography, where you have good chances of finding a place with no intrusion to hunt him along that route. You know, I don't know that you're going to admit that says I'm going to kill a deer out of this tree on this day without other intel. But looking at a property and putting boots on the ground, I think your experience has gotten you to the point where you can basically understand what most mature bucks are going to try to do when they get off their feet. And that's either, you know, on the downwind side of bedding or using topography to come out. Every buck's a little bit different, but for the most part, I think you can kind of play the shot a little bit.
Yeah, you know, Wes and I had a pretty good conversation today. He brought up that, you know, when we develop a plan for a property, it's not about just creating good stand locations, but it's also about creating good trail camera locations. And the spot where you want your trail camera, it may not be at the best spot for a stand. You can put that trail camera in a spot where the access is terrible, where the wind's always going to give you away, but you can gain enough information from that camera to put you in position to kill that deer, because it's going to tell you when the deer is there. And yeah, you may not be sitting in front of that camera or near that camera when it comes time to hunt that deer, but that camera has told you when you need to be on that property.
And he made mention about, you said that you don't necessarily like having cameras right next to your stands. There's a couple places that you have stands that there's a camera that you can, you know, see. I wouldn't say it's in the same tree as your stand, but I think maybe some people take that a little bit too literal. What we're saying is we don't want to booger up our good spots with going in checking trail cameras on our good stand locations. If it's an inside corner with a 360 blind wrapped in Miscanthus that you're accessing across the open ag field, yeah, you could have a camera right there beside your blind or your stand. That's a different story. But I think what you've been talking about is, you know, your good rut stands. Why burn that up having to go in and check trail cameras all the time on a place that, you know, you want to hunt?
Right. You know, and having that camera right on the trail, facing down the trail, so a deer is coming at that camera, looking right into it. But we've talked about that before several times, and you know, that's a big mistake. You need to get that camera off to the side of the trail, get it up in the air, pointed down, where it's way less likely that the deer's going to detect that camera. Just a lot of little tricks to get a deer's picture. And you know, I'll throw in another, and it shouldn't even do it really, but a plug for good cameras. You know, you cannot afford to miss pictures when your target buck comes by. And, Wes showed me a spreadsheet today of a buck, his target buck for this coming year. And he detailed it out. He's got every time that he got that buck's picture on any camera, he's got it listed on his spreadsheet. And he's got, there was I think he's got 140 events or times that he caught that deer on camera. And I think it was only 16 of those were in daylight. So he knows the dates and the locations where that buck has daylighted in the past. And he's going to be sitting in really good shape to kill that deer this fall. In fact, his idea was so good that I'm going to do it this year on some target bucks and probably produce a video about it at some point or write an article on it. But the intel that you get from a camera, you can take it to as far as an extreme as you want. You can just go check your card and see that there's a buck that you want to shoot coming by in daylight and start hunting, and maybe save the best picture on the card and delete the rest of them. Or you can really detail it like Wes has done and take it to the umpteenth degree and list everything. And you can even list the moon phase,
wind direction, temperature,
wind direction,
which direction
the
he
buck
was
was
walking
coming from. Yeah, but there's a lot of detailed information you can put down there, and that kind of stuff. That's what I did when I was the only time I've ever done that in my life is when I hunted Trump, the Trump buck. That was a tough character, and the day I shot him was the first day I ever laid eyes on him. I got his picture fairly consistent, but I was trying to put myself in a position to lay eyes on him. And that's when I started detailing all this information and going to, Intellicast or Weather Underground website and going back in their history and noting wind directions and such when I got his picture in certain locations. And you go and you do that with one buck over 2 or 3 years. And then when he becomes big enough that you want to target him, you should be sitting in pretty darn good shape with the information you put together the previous 2 or 3 years.
As long as you're not tromping up your property, then you get into an intrusion. And then you get into an intrusion situation.
Great point, Terry. That the cameras are great if they're used properly. It's like water holes. People think that I hate water holes. No, it's not the water hole that I'm against. It's the human intrusion when you got to go fill those water holes. If it's a water hole that you can create and natural runoff or a spring or whatever is going to keep water there and you don't have to put the water there, I am all for it. It's when you got to go in and fill it, hauling a tank in on a skid loader or on the back of a tractor or whatever to fill that water hole. That's the problem, because it's the human intrusion factor. Well, it's the same way with your cameras. If you've got cameras out and you've got them, that's why you got to have good cameras, because you put them out and have them soaking on your property for the entire season, and you go back 4 or 5 months later, you need to know that camera was working the whole time it was sitting there. Right. You can't be going in every 30 days and, busting out your property to check a camera.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thanks for the question, Casey. We appreciate it. Hope everything works out for you, and good luck this year. We'll go on to question number 3 right now.
This one comes from Kyle Wanger from Kingdom City, Missouri. He says, "Hey, Don and Terry, I appreciate the podcast, and I love listening in every week. My family has 30 acres that was recently enrolled into a CRP program, specifically targeting the monarch butterflies. We have 4 acres of food plots in these fields and also 1.5 acres of existing waterways and terraces that were not included in the program. They were overgrown with honey locusts, which have since been cut out at about 4 foot high and killed. Leaving it as a thick mat of fescue seems like a waste. What would you two recommend for these areas? Thanks." Well, it needs to be food or cover. You need to look at your property and the whole neighborhood, not just your property, but beyond your property, and what's in shortest supply. Do you have a property that's full of great bedding cover? If it is, then put some food in there. Plant a bunch of fruit trees in those waterways. Because you don't want tear up the ground and try to plant something where it's going to wash away. But you could plant fruit trees up and down those waterways, and basically the roots of those trees will help hold the soil, and you're providing a food source. But if you need cover, you may want to put switchgrass and miscanthus strips through those waterways. You need to look beyond your property and what's in the shortest supply in your neighborhood. That's what you need to provide there. And the other thing I'll throw out there is that Monarch Butterfly Program. Great program. I've got some pollinator on my farm where there's a lot of milkweed in that pollinator mix, and for a long time I didn't see any monarch butterflies on my farm for a period of several years. But now, in the late summer, those monarch butterflies are thick as can be because of all the milkweeds that are now growing on my farm that were once just about wiped out. That's one thing that some of these modern farm chemicals has done. They've almost eliminated certain species of weeds. I'll give you another one. When I was a kid, there was wild strawberries growing everywhere. I mean, we'd ride our bikes out in the country, and along the ditches along the road, there'd be wild strawberries everywhere. We'd just park our bikes in the side of the road and go up in the ditch and eat, wild strawberries. I can't remember the last time I seen a wild strawberry. Well, the milkweed, disappearing just about took care of the monarch butterfly. So if one thing I would throw out there, though, is if you're going to plant those pollinator type mixes with the wildflowers and the forbs, I would throw in just a touch of switchgrass in that mix to give it a little more cover. I'm not talking much at all, but I'm talking a pound and a half per acre of switchgrass. And it's going to sound like a sales pitch, but we're sold out. But real world switchgrass, it'll grow in these giant clumps, and then you'll have the wildflowers on and all around those giant clumps. So you're getting cover and you're getting the forbs at the same time.
The thing, and tell me if I'm crazy and you might completely disagree with me. We see this a lot in consulting with people wanting to put food in just random areas around their farm. Say you have this waterway or this grass that could potentially be in there, food or bedding. I don't like to have any food on my property that I can't hunt it or hunt deer going to it strategically. I might be thinking completely off my rocker, but I just don't like to give a deer a choice to go somewhere where I can't be. And most of the time when we do that in waterways or random places around the farm, it hurts our access to what we need to do, because deer can be spread out in so many different areas, and we end up blowing deer out, walking in or out in the morning or in the evening after dark. So I just, when it can't be hunted strategically, I don't like to put food there. I don't like spreading those deer out across the property.
That's a great point. From a hunting aspect, you need to be strategic about where you put everything, your food and your cover. Every property is going to be different. And a lot of these questions we get, we're trying to envision in our heads the picture that they're trying to describe as they submit their question. And what I envision in my head may be totally different than what the property really looks like. But you make a great point, Terry. Why put those fruit trees out in the middle of a big CRP patch if you've got no way to hunt over them?
Yeah. Well, where my head went to is the property I was on yesterday. There's this huge waterway that goes out across the field. And, the thought was we'll put that in CRP and just have this, big strip of bedding. And I thought, no, I want that thing mowed. I don't want any deer there. We're going to use it as access to ride a Quiet Cat bike out across it to get from point A to point B in between the corn. But I would rather not have any deer there, because that's what we're going to be using to get to the other side of that field. So like you said, it's very specific questions sometimes we get on the podcast, and without being there, it's hard to give a very specific answer.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll put up the next question we got one from New York this time.
Yeah, this one comes from Aiden Miller. It's not our buddy Aiden Miller. It's another Aiden Miller from Clyde, New York. Says, hi, Don and Terry. What is the single most important aspect in hunting whitetails successfully? Also, how old is a buck when he is fully mature? Thank you for all your knowledge you share on your podcast. This one was actually submitted as a letter, Terry, from an Amish listener. So I think it's a young man there from New York. And as far as what age is a buck mature, in my opinion, a buck is not mature until he's 5 years old. Anything 5 and older, I consider mature. 4 is getting there, but a 4-year-old buck is kind of like about a 35-year-old man. Still got a little bit of kid in him, but he's getting there. Once he gets 5, that's like a man in his mid 40s. He's mature at that point.
You're
as
saying
mature as
both
he's
of
ever
us-
going to be.
You're saying both of us are really mature at this point. Is what
Well,
you're saying.
I'm over the hill. I'm probably my core range has shrunk down to about my front yard. But what was the other question? What's the most important aspect of
Yeah, the
deer
single
hunting
most
success?
important aspect of hunting whitetails successfully.
Well, I can tell you this without a doubt. The single most important aspect is the property you're hunting on. And, we can say that it's play in the wind. We can say it's food plots or whatever. I'm telling you, it's the property you're on. You can have prime whitetail habitat and no deer there. And guess what? You're not going to kill them if they're not there. You can have poor habitat, but a lot of deer on it, and you're going to kill some deer. The property you're on is the number one factor, and that's why the public land is such a challenge, is because it gets pounded, and it's much harder to hunt. There's no patterns to the deer on most public land that I've ever seen. The deer are just kind of traveling here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, sure, you can find some pinch points and things like that, but the odds of catching a mature buck on public land going past the same camera multiple days in a row is very unlikely to happen. However, you could be in that very same region on a piece of ground that gets little hunting pressure. The deer can be piled in there, and your hunting success is going to skyrocket. So without a doubt, the number one factor for success as a deer hunter is the property you have access or you're actually hunting on.
Yep. All right. I agree. Let's get to the next question. Sorry, my mouse was sticking for a second. There we go.
All right. This one comes from David Amon from Highland, Illinois. He says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Thanks for the podcast and all the great info. My question is in regard to Miscanthus when used for a screen and how deer go through it. As a new real-world wildlife products dealer, I have had the question a couple times, so I'm sure there are other people who wonder also. I had someone who has a new farm with large pasture on it, no more cows, and has about a 1.5 acre food plot in the back of that pasture. They want to plant Miscanthus across the front side of that plot for a screen from the rest of the pasture and make it more secluded. However, they are worried if there are deer that are out in that open pasture, they will still travel through that Miscanthus screen into the plot. Should they leave an opening in the Miscanthus basically as a doorway entry into the plot? Could you share any experience you have with deer traveling through Miscanthus? Thanks for all the great information. Continued prayers for both of your families." Well, David, if a deer wants to go through that Miscanthus, he's going through it. And I can tell you that from what I've seen on my own farm, and I got a lot of Miscanthus, they will make a path through it. Now I think you can help them to some degree if you leave a spot, an opening, a doorway, as you suggest, and where they don't have to fight their way through it. Absolutely, they will use it as long as they don't have to go too far out of their way to use it. You're probably not going to move them a quarter mile to go through your doorway, but they're going to go through that Miscanthus.
Well, the problem is it takes 3 years to really get your Miscanthus really thick. So for the first 3 years, the deer are just going to walk through something as open as corn, for a lack of better visual. and then that path is going to be there. So, if there's a true concern about, a deer going through it, then you might end up having to put some temporary fence up or something like that with your miscanthus if you're really worried about them going around it, just deadheading. But we have seen, especially on the northwest corner of your farm, how the end of a miscanthus run will have a lot more traffic around it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll use that end of the miscanthus row quite a bit as just a structure. But, this product is a long-term play, and to be able to keep deer from going through it at all, you're going to probably need a little bit extra help from either fence or round bales or something to keep them from going through it while it's getting established.
Well, and even once it is established, they're still going to pick their way through it if that's where they want to go. You're right, Terry. You could build a fence right along the edge of that miscanthus, and they're going to funnel around the end of that fence, and that's probably going to be the best scenario, for this. And again, we're just trying to envision what he's describing. But it sounds like these deer are coming across that pasture to the food plot, and they don't want them to come right through the middle of that miscanthus into the middle of the plot. They want them to come around the edges of the plot, probably where they got blinds or stands, and that's where you just put a fence across there, and you end the fence, 20, 30 yards from each end, and the deer work around one end or the other. It's the only two options they got, and the miscanthus can still be growing right against that as a screen. But they're going to pick a hole through miscanthus.
Yeah. Well, I think about the miscanthus tunnel technique that you showed at the remote master class in Ohio at the Miller's farm. And basically we wanted this blind out in the middle of the field so that the wind blew back, but we needed to walk out the field. So we basically made a tunnel of miscanthus, just a U shape from where we could get access to out into that field. But we had to put a fence so that the deer couldn't cross the path. They had to walk out around the top of the tunnel, around the blind to go from one side or the other. If it wasn't for that fence on the inside of that miscanthus tunnel, they would just walk right across it. So I think you might have to come up with something in combination of your miscanthus if you're really worried about them cutting through it.
There is no better screen than miscanthus, but it's not going to stop a deer that wants to go through it.
All right. Good question. That's we get a lot of miscanthus questions this time of year, and that was a good one.
Yeah, like 10 times a day.
It's all right.
I've been answering a lot of them. Yeah, not complaining whatsoever. We want people to be successful, but this is the time of the year when that miscanthus is going in, so the questions definitely roll in. This one comes from Thomas Chandler from Greenwich, Ohio. It says, "Hi, Don and Terry. Thanks for all the great information. Here is my question. With your very careful selections of stand placement, how many times in the last few years have you got winded by a deer? And just to give me an idea how well placed your stands are, what percent is the chance of any deer coming downwind? Thanks very much." Well, I haven't kept track of things like that, but I can tell you the deer that come by my stand and wind me is way less than 5% for sure. If I had 100 deer come by my stand, I guarantee you less than 5 of them are coming downwind. And, I'm blowing my scent into an area of low deer likelihood where it's very unlikely that deer are going to be, but occasionally they do get there. How many times have I been winded in the last few years? I have no idea, but it's not that many. I would say, each season I'm going to get winded, a handful of times, but it's not as much as you would think. Because I hunt so much, I'm out I don't hunt as much as I used to, but I'm out compared to your average hunter. I'm out a whole lot more. So, I probably see from a tree stand every year, several hundred deer from a tree stand every year. And only a small handful of those wind me. Probably less than 10 total deer, you know, there may be 3 come by at once and they win me. There's probably less than 10 total deer that get my scent out of several hundred every year. So, you know, it happens.
I don't think people understand, truly envision how you hunt edges. 95% of the people that hang a tree stand are so much further into their core or into sanctuary that I really don't think that most of the people truly understand how you've set up farms to get on the edge so you're not putting intrusion on your property, and then hunt those funnels coming out of your core. Even your rut stands, for the most part, are still even on the edges for the most part. I just don't think people really understand that.
Well, and there's two reasons for that. One is that the bucks are going to play the wind, so you got to play the wind. And the other thing is human intrusion. You got to keep the human intrusion down. So get out on the edge where it's almost, if you're hunting the edge and a deer wins you, he's out in the wide open. And a mature buck is not going to be out in the wide open. If I
might get
winded,
those that go way out in the field and wind you, but
that's where I was going to go. I cannot remember the last time a mature buck winded me. I bet it's been a decade that a mature buck winded me. If I get winded, it's almost always a doe or a yearling buck. You know, an animal that's not afraid to be out in a wide open field 100 yards from the woods or whatever. Those are the ones that are going to win me. The mature bucks are not winning me.
Yeah, because we're always blowing our scent out over open, either water, ag fields, something. But I don't think most people quite put that connection together. How we truly do not. We are the most conservative. I tell consulting clients this all the time. We are the most conservative approach to hunting that you're ever going to see, hear, or read about. We're just changing the habitat of the core to where we can hunt it on the edge, and really hard for people, even when we talk going into a consulting visit, until they see it with us walking around the property, they can't appreciate how conservative our approach is.
Mm-hmm. Well, I keep bringing up Wes. We had many conversations today, and he brought up another great point. He said, you know, often you go to a consulting client's property to do a plan for them, and they'll say, I'll do anything you say. This is my property. You just tell me what to do. Whatever you tell me, that's what we're going to do. And what they mean is they will do anything in terms of creating deer habitat. They want to turn every acre into great deer habitat. And Wes made the point that sometimes you don't need more deer habitat. You need a place for your scent to blow so that you can hunt the habitat that's already there. And I know I seen a plan that Wes did earlier this year. You know, I review all those plans that you sent to me. There's one where he had a cattle pasture, a new cattle pasture being drawn in. I asked him about it, and he says, well, this client wanted a cattle pasture, but he wanted me to tell him where to put it. And he said, so we utilized that cattle pasture as a place for his scent to go, and also for an access, so he could walk across that cattle pasture, hop the fence and be in a stand, and his scent's blowing right back across that cattle pasture, an area of low deer likelihood. So if it's blowing across a wide open ag field, that's an area of low deer likelihood. If it's blowing across a body of water, you're not going to expect a deer to be swimming across the lake and get downwind of you. Or if it's a cattle pasture, whatever it may be. Sometimes, another thing Wes said today was a lot of times the client thinks that, well, my property's not that good, I just need to buy more. And they want to buy the neighbors and then the next neighbors and everything that touches them. And all they end up with is more acreage. They don't end up with a better property. They just end up with a bigger property. And, you know, he really, it was good to spend a day with him because he provoked a lot of thought and ideas in my head that I've got plenty of things to consider. And that's the good thing about this dream team of consultants is I get to see everyone's plan that comes through, and I see ideas that I haven't thought of before, and you know, I'll start applying them. I mean, I showed Wes some things on this new 98-acre property today, and once he's seen it, he says, man, this is just brilliant how this is all set up. And he said, it plays right into what the deer want to do anyway. And so we kind of learn from each other, and I think it just makes us all better.
Yep, I agree. Well, all right, we're about at the end of the show. What do you got cooking this week, Don?
Well, I'm going to try to get some food plots planted if the rain will stop long enough. Tomorrow I'm going to, I got to put some mulch around the last of my trees I planted this spring. I got, 50 or so persimmon trees that need mulch around them. I'm going to try to get that done in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I'm going to put my new G-Series drill on the tractor, and I'm going to apply humic acid to all my food plots. I don't know that there's a better way to put that humic on. You need to get it down in the soil. You can broadcast it on top, and if you do that, you need to work it into the soil with a tiller or a disc or whatever. But that drill, I can get it down in there a couple inches with that drill, and right where it needs to be. So I'm gonna do that tomorrow. Those two things, and then hopefully Sunday after church, it's gonna be dry enough. It's supposed to rain Monday, but hopefully Sunday afternoon I can get some miscanthus and planted, maybe a couple food plots as well.
Yeah, it's supposed to rain down here, I believe, the next 5 days. So I think we're booted out of the field at least till the middle of next week. So we'll see how it goes. It's definitely that season, but read your conditions. Don't worry about the calendar quite as much. The conditions have to be right. Soil prep needs to be right. Don't panic and make bad decisions and put you in a bigger bind or for failure later on down the road.
Yeah, you definitely need to wait. You don't want to go out in conditions that are too wet. It'll just that when that ground dries, it'll just dry hard as a rock if you've been out there trying to till it or disc it or whatever. Wait for the ground conditions to be right and the soil temperatures to warm up, and you'll have a lot better results, even if the calendar tells you should have done it a month ago.
Right. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
God bless everyone. Have a great week.
Chasing Giants has been brought to you by Osseo Camo, Via Farm Real Estate Company, 360 Hunting Blinds, Victory Chevrolet, Real World Wildlife Products, Matthews Archery, Novix Tree Stands, Gingerich Tree Farm, WildlifeFarming.com, Quiet Cat, and Vortex Optics. Thanks for listening, and tune in next week for another episode of Chasing Giants.